Hey everybody, happy Monday, August 31st. I'm Julie Alexandria here in Slam Diego alongside Jennifer Mercedes in New Jersey and Ozzie Guillén Jr. in Chicago. Welcome to a brand new episode of La Vida Baseball Live. How you guys doing?
Doing well, thank you. Yourself?
Doing awesome.
Awesome. Today marks the trade deadline here for the 2020 condensed season at 4 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to be breaking down all the trades, the winners, the losers, who's going where, who ended up where. Plus, we're going to be talking about all of the activism that has gone down in Major League Baseball over the past couple of months. But first, we start on a bit of a sad note. Hollywood and everyone mourns the loss of an icon over the weekend, Mr. Chadwick Boseman, who passed away after a 4-year battle with colon cancer at just 42 years old. He knew that his voice was a powerful one. He used it to change Hollywood for the better. An incredible actor, he portrayed real and fictional icons alike, from Jackie Robinson to James Brown, Thurgood Marshall, and Black Panther. The Howard University alum battled a secret battle with cancer. This entire time he was working on films, action films, giving all physically, mentally, and emotionally, the entire time going through cancer treatment. And this really brought up the fact of a bigger issue. Not only are we mourning the loss of this incredible human being, but also makes you think you never know what battle someone is going up against that day.
Yeah, it's just incredibly sad to lose such a young talent like Chadwick. When I heard the news, I mean, I was in complete shock, and the entire weekend I was just really, really sad because during this particular time that we're living in, his voice is such a much needed voice. And he was very outspoken. And one of the things that I saw through one of his interviews about him, purposefully staying away from stereotypical characters, even at the beginning of his career, very young career, he questioned a role that he was on, I think it was a soap opera, and he questioned that role, and he questioned the history behind this character's role. And Julie, as you know, when we're acting, we always want to know the story. We want to know what's behind this character's life. And it was stereotypical answers, and he was not called back to the job. But because because he said no, it allowed him to be where he was today. And I think he's just such an icon with such a short career, really. And he became this icon for a lot of people. And representation, we always say representation matters. And he fought for that. I mean, Wakanda, Black Panther, that entire movie was something that a lot of young Black and brown kids had not ever seen. And to see the impact that he had on this youth's generation is incredible.
Cancer sucks. That's the first thing. I think that he was an amazing actor, just because his work speaks for itself. But I think that we learned, at least for me, two things. I think he became a real superhero. Because often in life right now, we're all about the motivational speakers and the books and all this stuff to get going, get your day going. I know I love it. And this guy's a new inspiration, because anytime I feel like I can't go because my back hurts, or, I feel like I'm a little tired from work and family. This guy had cancer. Hardcore cancer, okay? Colon cancer. And the demands for everyone who's an actor, and if you're not, Google it. This guy was putting on weight, losing weight. It's not easy being an actor. It's a very demanding position. And he never took any job down that had those demands. He could have walked away from all those superhero positions because his body couldn't take it, and just done more of like the less demanding ones. And he did it. He did it because he knew that it meant something, that he wanted to be that character. The second part of my statement is that I wasn't around when Superman first came out. I wasn't around when any other superheroes. I was already old enough that when I came in, it wasn't like the first time I saw them. I think that for him and this generation, he was the first superhero that a generation saw be born. Meaning, I can relate the actual superhero to the guy who played him. Okay? To see all the little kids across the United States and the world mourning him like they had lost a superhero.
Yeah.
That to me is so touching, because they knew the guy, like they knew the superhero who played him. Like, I know the next, the 50th Batman, the 30th Superman, but they knew the first one. And there's going to be other guys that are going to play, the Black Panther and whatnot, but those kids knew that one. So that impact of that he has had on their lives, I think for someone to pass away and have an impact on a young generation, but then on grown people, on adults, to keep his life so private, especially at the end when people were saying a lot of mean things about him when he had his last conversation, how he physically looked, and he never lashed out or anything. I tip my cap, man. That's so much dedication to your craft and your life, because he could have walked away so easily after any of those movies and said, you know what, I'm going to deal with my disease. And we would have respected that. But he showed up at the job every single day. So for that, that's a real Iron Man. And I will hold him in high regards for that.
No, he was a superhero on and off the screen. And Cesar on Facebook says, see you on the other side, young warrior. Wakanda forever. And he also says, crazy how he passed on Jackie Robinson Day, which I just want to clarify for Jason Stark of The Athletic. He wasn't just some guy who passed on Jackie Robinson Day, who played Jackie Robinson. His name was Chadwick Boseman.
Who's a huge baseball fan. Who's a huge baseball fan. That's the part that I was so mad about when you wrote about it. I didn't want to write back as a reporter. Anybody, I know you did, but I'm saying, like, he wasn't, if I'll be honest, like, I've never watched Black Panther. I haven't. I've watched all his other movies. I'm going to watch Black Panther, but how he played Jackie, he did such a good job. But he wasn't a guy that played Jackie and then disappeared. He was in baseball. Like, he had the Negro League Museum's presidents and everybody at the red carpet. It was such a cool moment for baseball and Hollywood to come together. And he had a voice for baseball. We knew that he was a baseball fan. So for that disconnect to be there, I was a little shocked, because, you know, even Ozzie Sr., who doesn't, he didn't know that number one, he didn't know his name. He was like, oh my God, Jackie passed away. The guy who played Jackie, because he knew him. He was like, that's the guy who played Jackie Robinson. And for the baseball world, that's how we knew him. And people cherish him for that. So for someone to just not use his name after someone's in a passing, I think it's bad enough to do that on anybody. Yeah. But to just do it as a sports baseball writer who covers the game of baseball on Jackie's day, which again is I don't think you could even write a story like this. He's 42 on Jackie's day. It was like, if you haven't been thinking about, if you weren't thinking about it, like, really start thinking about it, because so many coincidences. And, you know, I think that that's when we have to do better. You know, we talk about, I think if you change yourself, you make the world a better place. And you have to start with things like that, acknowledging everybody equally and by their first names, because you might think you're not doing a disservice, although you're not doing anything wrong, but you're not doing anything right either, and the right thing. So those are the things that we need to change.
Oh, yes. Well said. Moving on. Let's talk about the trade deadline, which is vastly approaching today, 4 p.m. Eastern. Already so many trades have gone down. Let's start with this one. Ozzie's excited. Chicago, well, we're going to get into what Chicago's been up to. But today, the Chicago Cubs acquired outfielder Jose Martinez Cafecito from the Rays for a player to be named later, or for cash consideration. So, Jennifer, I'm just bummed that you can't go to the stadiums and in Chicago and talk to these guys, because this is obviously what you do so well, and what we look forward to having here on La Vida Baseball Live is having these interviews. And you haven't been able to do that, to get out there to the Chicago fields in order to talk to these guys. But what an amazing opportunity to interview him. Maybe if they make it all the way, we'll get an interview.
I mean, I'd like to have some cafecito with Cafecito, right? Like, that would be awesome. We'd go out for some coffee and talk. And I mean, COVID. But it is what it is. And I do hate it. I hate that we are not being able to really interact with players, because even on the Zoom calls, it's not like you can pick and choose who you want to talk to. It's just, it's whoever the team allows you to speak to at the time. So yeah, I mean, it sucks, but you know, best of luck to Jose Martinez. I think he's going to do well with the Cubs.
Fans are going to see an exciting kid. That's for sure. We FaceTimed him right afterwards. He's really good friends with both my brothers. His father played many years with my father. Great kid, great story. He's pumped, man. He loves Chicago, loves the city. He's a big DJ fan. He just loves the cuisine. He loves everything about the city. So he was excited. You know, this shows you, like, when you play well and there's not a spot for you on that one team, that teams will look to move you if you have that talent. and he's in the right place. I think the Cubs need offense. They also need an exciting guy. Cafecito's a guy that in the dugout, he brings that energy. I thought that he was going to go to the Cleveland Indians. I thought because they had the pitching arms to move, but the Cubs won this trade, and I think that both teams, and I think this is going to be a trade that in the next years to come, both teams are going to be winners on the end, because the kid that the Cardinals sent over to Tampa is pretty legit himself.
Well, let's keep the conversation going and staying in Chicago, because we've got the Cubs who have been absolutely rolling. We've got the White Sox who are tied for first. Ozzie, this is first time in a decade, right?
Oh, I don't remember. I weighed like 210 pounds last time this happened. I'm probably like 250, a long time ago. I had a lot more hair. You know what? I think 2008, maybe 2008 was probably the last time they were both in first place and had such a, Chicago, like New York actually had to have it in my lifetime, which I thought was really cool. We've never had a World Series where both teams meet, which I would think it would be super cool that if it happened in my lifetime, just because that's a once in a lifetime experience. I don't know if the city could probably stand it, and I would be very concerned. But you know what? In a year where there's so much crazy things happening, I think that why not? It's an exciting team. The Chicago White Sox
things have happened.
Yeah, exactly. They're an exciting team. They're young, they're fun, they're colorful. They have a voice, and it's a good thing for Chicago. The White Sox, again, they had been rebuilding for 4 years. And they're not I don't see them mortgaging their future in the trade deadline. I wish that they leave the team intact. They made a move for Gerard Dyson, who's a veteran presence. I think that move was enough. With that move, that's all they need. And just don't mess with something good. Like, they have the team that they need. I don't want them trading a big part of like the starting lineup. Moving a Moncada or a Madrigal or an Eloy, because you're going to get a big name pitcher or someone that's going to get you over the hump because you have too much offense. Don't change anything. I know people in the analytics world do not believe in this. They don't believe in chemistry. I do. I believe in chemistry a lot. And this team is a special one. They get along. You can see the energy, and that's why they're playing the way they are.
You would think that analytics people would be for chemistry. I mean, it has to do with numbers and science and all of that. But with that being said, Ozzie, I know you've been a big critic of the White Sox manager. What are your opinions on him right now?
You know what? In-game management, he still does moves that you scratch your head. Okay? And that's in-game management. You can always fix that. The team is responding well to him. So that's where I think I give him credit that they're still winning. What you have to decide this year moving forward is this team good enough that a manager won't mess it up? Or is this good team enough that they need somebody else when that moment does get hard, that you need to make a big game decision in order to get them to the next level? That's the big difference.
And my advice would be, because you just said something that reminded me and Julie of the Mets when they were in the World Series, and do not commit to Terry Collins.
Yeah, correct.
The
Pedro Martinez. The move to, letting Pedro go out, like Pedro looking at the sky. Everybody in the world knew what that means.
You're talking about the Matt Harvey debacle, right?
Yeah, the Matt Harvey debacle.
Listening to Matt Harvey when he says he wants to go back out.
Yeah.
Correct. And then the Williams one was a famous one. Pedro walks off the field, looks at the sky, which in everyone's who knows Pedro means I'm done. But he goes up to Pedro in between the inning and says, "Can you go back out?" What do you think Pedro's going to tell you? No, I'm not going to go back out. I'm Pedro Martinez. Yeah. He goes back out. He gets beat. The Red Sox. Everything that happened. The Yankees take him. Yeah. Those are situations where there's been managers that have won World Series, absolutely. But sometimes when you make decisions, I think that when especially in a playoff, your offense is not going to be that amazing. You're going to have to produce a run. Mm-hmm. That's when the difference happens. And I think that they're going to have to make that decision. But right now, that team is responding to even some really bad in-game moves, and they're playing. And I really like the maturity of this team. They're very mature on the field. They do a lot of fun things, and it's really hard sometimes when you're having a lot of fun because people correlate fun with immaturity. But they're having fun. But when they're on the field, they're doing a lot of things in a very mature manner. The way they go about their at-bats, the improvement that they've had on the field defensively, which was one of the things that they had a negative. So they're going to be good. It's an exciting race. I think all three teams make the playoffs, in my opinion, from this division, because they're all really good, and it's going to be exciting. But I think from a White Sox standpoint, I think they need to start deciding of like, is this the right guy down the line? And if he is, how do we make him better and how do we help him out? You can do that with a bench coach. You can do that, putting the right people around him to not let him make those mistakes, because the talent is there. There's no doubt in my mind that the talent is there, because they've definitely shown it.
Well, Cesar agrees with you on Facebook. He says, I believe the chemistry is a huge part of the game. The White Sox are on fire. The White Sox manager just needs to let them play. So he agrees with you. And I also want to read, there was another comment about, I believe it was from Armando, talking about the Padres. Let's talk about the Padres, because they are about to stop at absolutely nothing that will keep them away from a trophy in 2020. Let's just talk about the amount of moves and transactions they have made in the past 48 hours. My goodness. First of all, they were looking for bullpen reinforcements. They were looking for a big bat at catcher. They need a catcher who can get on base. They had a huge shopping list. Here they are. They cut a 7-player deal with the Seattle Mariners. They bring over Jason Castro from the Angels. They've got right-hander Trevor Rosenthal from the Kansas City Royals. They've got a designated hitter in Mitch Moreland. And just an hour old, they get Mike Clevinger in a 5-player deal with the Cleveland Indians. My goodness. They are ready to compete. A lot of people on Twitter criticizing the move, saying, doing all that to compete for the second place in the NL West? What do you guys think about all these moves? They are leaving no stone unturned.
I mean, 5 players is a lot of players to give up, particularly in the season that we're in, because I mean, anything can happen. But again, anything can happen. So I understand trying to win, and nothing is set in stone. Although the Dodgers are obviously on a roll and have always been on a roll every single year, things happen, and the Dodgers don't make it sometimes. So I mean, why not put all your eggs in one basket and see what happens? It's 2020. It's the year to do it.
all in. It's a double-edged sword. One thing tells me that they believe in their talent. It's really hard for a general manager in a trade deadline to make all the right moves and then leave you with some moves that you're scratching your head saying, why did you make that move? I really feel like the morning started off him not thinking he was going to get Clevinger. Mm-hmm. And then they made a bunch of moves for a bunch of players early, Seattle, for example. And then later in the day, you get a call from the Indians and say, hey, by the way, I'm ready to move Clevinger to you. Who do you have? And that's where I think that the dangerous part for the Padres fans is they depleted their whole minor league system. It's also worrisome because, remember, we did not have a draft this year. So the 35, 40 guys that you had a chance to draft and maybe develop, you don't have them. So they're definitely starting in the red next year when it comes to minor league players, not even knowing the situation in minor league baseball, okay, what it's going to look like moving forward. That was the scary part. Also, the scary part is they have a young, talented catcher, okay, in Mejia. You're in first place. I know that he's battled some injuries. You don't need him to hit with that offense, okay? Tatis hits for both of them. You just needed him to be a catcher behind the plate. Now you bring in 2 catchers. I want to see what his position is like. The part that I was also surprised is I thought that he would be involved in the Clevinger trade to the Indians because the Indians need a catcher. I'm just saying though, I thought that they were asked that they brought in catchers because they were going to deal him because he was on my short list of guys that I would ask for if I was trying to move somebody from the Padres. Like, people don't realize this. Like, of course everybody wants Tatis, but you can't get him. So you're like, okay, who can I get that they might move that might help my team who's big league ready. So from the Indian side, I'm very surprised that they didn't take him on the Clevinger move. They took players that, again, not hating on anyone's scouting department, but I'm still debating. I'm wondering why you took those guys. You need offense. The guys that you brought are not known for being offensive guys. They've been struggling. So some moves sometimes leave your head to scratch.
Guys, offensive. The only 2 guys in that deal who have actually seen major league action is Cal Quantrill, a pitcher, and Austin Hedges, who's an anemic bat.
Baseball Reference and Austin Hedges numbers this year, and then in the past. So from a Cleveland standpoint, they've done 2 moves in back-to-back years that have been very surprising. And this is when I think they're very confident in their pitching. They don't like very voiceful pitchers. I know that for a fact now. They trade Trevor Bauer, okay, to Cincinnati last year. They trade him. and then they trade this year Clevenger. Okay, so they moved 2 big pitchers in 2 years back to back. Those are things to rebuild your kind of like your depleted, offense or depleted farm system. Time will tell on who they got in the minor league players, but it was very surprising because I definitely thought that instead of Edges, it would be Mejia. Bring him in, develop him in the with that staff as a young catcher. But now, too many catchers in San Diego. They're all in. So if you're in that clubhouse today, you're like, okay, boys, and we got to win. And then Tingler's pressure just went up. San Diego right now is we were not sure if they went all in. They're all in, and they just mortgaged the home farm system. And for Cleveland, they really believe that they can compete without Clevenger. Also, on there to protect them, and they please that can still take that spot. They have enough pitching that they still can compete with it. But again, I think that there's still moves to be made. I really think that they're not done making moves.
San Diego bet the farm. We'll see how it works out for them. The Mets also taking a bet on Stephen Cohen. He seems to be the sole bidder when it comes to buying the team, which is a deal that the team hopes to have done by December. Jennifer Mercedes, that means J-Lo and A-Rod are out. This news broke sort of late last week that Steve Cohen was really the only bidder still in the running because their second party had been denied, and then J-Lo and A-Rod pulled out. So, I see two sides of this, Jen, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but on the downside, on the not so good side, I wish that J-Lo and A-Rod were still involved because they would have been great for that team, great for press, great for marketing, and great to make a change and turn that franchise around. On the other side, on the plus side, I see Stephen Cohen has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when you have a lot of money, you can afford good players. And when you can afford good players, you can build a winning team. So I think for Mets fans, you should be happy with this because in Cohen's, in respect to Cohen, money is kind of no object. So they should expect to have a winning team. But it is a bummer not to see J-Lo and A-Rod, get in on the ownership game.
Call them.
Yeah. Say that again, Ozzie?
Cohen, call them. You can go. I'll let you go for it, and I'll do my statement.
Oh, no. Well, I was just going to say, yeah, like I agree as far as you're looking at it from a business perspective, you're going to want to get the most bang for your buck. And Cohen is that guy. I think just from a Latino perspective, having that hope of, having this power couple be part of something like this would have been impactful to the community. I think, though, this does open doors down the road. Hopefully, then, when there is another opportunity like this, maybe they'll be better prepared for this, because I know it was, a lot of it was also there were too many parts with them. So I think maybe they'll be better prepared down the line for something like this. Also, very quickly, to certain journalists out there who was complaining about Jennifer Lopez tweeting about her disappointment for not being able to do this. This is not hashtag rich people problems. Like that, I forgot who his name was, which is why I don't say his name, but he was upset that J-Lo was tweeting about not being able to get the team, which I found to be really ridiculous because it's not rich people problems. It's just something that wasn't able to happen that would have been impactful to people like us because it matters to us.
Well, I think to J-Lo, now I know why she was in it, and it wasn't because of A-Rod. And that's awesome. And that's why if I was Mr. Cohen or Mr. Cohen's team, I'd be calling her right now and saying, I want you to be a part of this deal and let's work something out. Why? Mr. Cohen has a lot of money. He knows nothing about baseball. Absolute squat. Okay.
Why do you say that?
He's just not a baseball guy. He's not a baseball.
He's also a minority owner of the Mets.
He's a minority owner, but I don't think that he knows. So this would be my package that I would bring in. He brings the money, which again, because you have money doesn't mean that you know something. So he has the money. J-Lo wanted to be an owner because that was her father's favorite team, okay? It would also put her in a position of being one of the first minority women owner Latina in any major sport, which again, she knows she can win Grammys and all that. That would put her in a business world where only a few have been able to reach. Alex Rodriguez, if you know the world of baseball, I don't care how many good businesses Alex has. He can have all the best gyms in the world. He could be dating the hottest girl in the world who's awesome. There's two things I think Alex wants to accomplish in his lifetime. One of them, which is really hard, it's not in his hands, Hall of Fame. But I think that he wants to be a champion in his own right, as an owner, as a general manager, as a president. He knows he can do it. He has the mind to do it.
Yeah.
I can see him becoming a president of a Major League Baseball team. That's why he does ESPN, not because of the money. He does it because so we can hear how smart he is about baseball. If you've known Alex, you know that Alex loves the game of baseball, and he would love to win one as an executive. He would be a great candidate for being a president of that team, because that team, it has a lot of key pieces, but they need to really look internally and say, what do we need to be successful again and be a successful franchise from a operations standpoint as a team, and also as a PR marketing and bringing back the Mets to where there once was. So I really feel like the J-Lo A-Rod combination really has a spot still in the new ownership, because what I don't want to see is the new ownership come in and just dump in more money to keep doing the same type of crazy things, just signing players. You need a new philosophy. What's our philosophy going to be? And I really think, but a lot of people don't believe this, I think that Alex, even with all his crazy stuff that he's done and comments, he knows baseball. And he's the guy that will bring new school and old school, and he will bring guys that he will give a lot of opportunities to the young up and coming coaches and front office individuals, and players will love him. He already has a manager, okay? He has key pieces. They need someone to come in and help him finish the building. Mr. Cohen has the money. I think A-Rod can come in and do the baseball side, and whatever J-Lo, what kind of power she wanted to have in, let her come in the mix, because I really think that she was upset because it was something that it would have been really cool. How many little girls can say they bought their dad's favorite team growing up? That's definitely something to be really proud of.
The girl from the Bronx.
Correct.
Yes. And it's all really going to hinge on who Cohen can bring in, because his money is only as good as the baseball minds he ends up surrounding himself with. All right, let's go to a quick video. Eloy Jimenez getting a little bit of payback. If this doesn't put a smile on your face this Monday afternoon, I don't know what will. Watch this.
Way to go, kid!
Hey, at least Robert didn't move. He knew he was getting. He didn't get the translator Billy Russo. He was nice. That's awesome. You know, again, when your team is doing well, Eloy is a guy that brings smiles and has that team rolling. So it's exciting. They're exciting to watch if you're not watching them.
Exactly. And like you said, Ozzie, they're having fun while still playing really well and having a certain maturity level. They're having fun. And that's one of the things that you really, really need to do when you're playing this game.
That's true. True that. Okay. We have one more topic to get to. Ozzie, do we have you for one more? Can we?
Yeah, no, we're good. We'll keep rolling.
Okay, let's keep rolling, because this is so good. Jen, I mean, we've been talking about this, the role when you look at baseball, when you look at sports across the league and you juxtapose with what is happening in this world. They say keep sports and politics separate, but here's a bit of an awakening moment. They are not separate. They are all one. When you look at what the players have done to take social justice and awareness and activism into their own hands, and you look at the walkouts, and the playing under protest, what an amazing opportunity for sports to take a moment and make these social injustices known and heard worldwide. And what an incredible moment in sports to have these players take an active role in this. What kind of doors do you see opened here, Jennifer, for the future when it comes to baseball and activism and just overall awareness?
Well, first of all, I mean, we've seen the WNBA has been ahead of everyone when it comes to activism and protest and bringing awareness to certain issues that concern us, the people. So shout out to the women who've been doing a really great job at that. Then you have the NBA, who has also done a really great job at doing what they do. But when you have Major League Baseball has been a long time, called America's pastime. America's pastime, though, has been filled with systemic racism from its initial, from its initial point. I mean, the Minnesota Twins, and I've talked about this before, they were moved to Minnesota because their owner knew that there weren't a lot of Black people there. So he didn't want Black people in the stands. That's one of the reasons that team was moved there. So when you have Major League Baseball take a strike, not play games, I understood why the Brewers were doing it. It was like, okay, I expected that. But when you have other teams do that, I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that they were feeling brave enough and they felt the support of their owners possibly to do this. I think that the doors that open up is that you force owners to have your players back. You then, because we know owners are in a lot of these politicians' pockets. They work with lobbyists for a long amount of time. And this is how you create change. I know a lot of people say, well, what do you do by protesting? Well, what do you do by not playing? Number one, it allows people to focus on the issue. You don't have sports as a distraction. Owners are now calling their legislators, they're calling attorney generals, they're calling their prosecutors to find out the status of some of these cases that we've been seeing on the news. They want to know what's going on, and they're getting more involved. And this is how you make change happen, because teams, particularly baseball, have such a close connection to police departments. It's going to force them to have deeper rooted conversations. I know a lot of the players were like, we're going to have a conversation. And I also think that this is going to force white players to not let their Black teammates be the only voice of this. You can't have only Jason Hayward being the one to speak up on what's going on. And I'm sorry, and I understand that Jason pushed for the team to play, but you got to have your players back. And you even if he tells you to play, you got to have his back and be like, nah, we're all in this together. You're not playing, we're not playing. That's my opinion. But when it comes to the doors that are opening, I really do think that these protests and these strikes allow for change, because it forces the people up top. Those are the people who have the money, and those are the people who have say when it comes to whatever administration is in place. They're the ones that can make things happen. Money talks. At the end of the day, money talks. Rich people, they know other rich people, and money talks. That's just what it is.
I really hope that it's the beginning to something. Most of the time, players wanted to stay away from politics, protesting, because they didn't want to deal with the backlash from maybe ownership or sitting out or being reprimanded, losing pay, being cut, whatever the reason was. I really think that it was surprising to see in baseball. NBA is not hard. I don't care what anybody tells me, it's not hard. 95% of the league looks alike. There's 12 guys on a team. Like you are the league of Black players. Like if you're not protesting, then we have bigger issues than that. But when it comes to baseball, it's totally different. Why? 25-man rosters this year is a lot bigger. Blacks are in the minority, number one, and you're not used to protesting. So to get 25 guys to be okay to walking off a field and saying we're not playing today, that's hard, because they've had conversations after September 11th. Are we going to play? Are we not going to play? They didn't know. And this one was an easy one. And for the owners in the league in itself, and the owners to say, you know what, guys, we're okay with it. We want you guys to express yourselves. Even if something as little as letting guys on the bench wear Black Lives Matters t-shirt. That's awesome, because they want to voice their opinion. I hope that it doesn't stop now. I hope that if things keep happening after the change of the guard or not the change of the guard, that players feel not only just for this, for whatever anything they want to speak out about, that they feel like they have that freedom. Okay. And that's what's going to dictate if this is political or not, if it's really you wanting to voice your opinion on something. And I really feel that it was a good time, because we assume a lot of times how a player who's not of a certain skin or color, what they might be thinking. But the support was amazing by every single player that decided to walk away. We haven't heard a teammate say, well, I wanted to play. It's been unified. It's been done behind closed doors. What the Mets and the Marlins did was absolutely awesome. It was very strong. And again, I really believe that when you have Major League Baseball as an owner, I believe that those conversations now in owner meetings or just one-offs is, what can we do to make this better so that in 2 or 3 years, this doesn't happen to us with fans in the stands, that it's way bigger than it is now. Like, this is the chance to saying, we need to get this right moving forward. So let's start having these conversations so we can start creating change. And I really believe that that's the way that it moves. So the players have started it. It's got to continue. And I think it's something that moving forward, I think that a couple rules are going to change and letting guys have more of a voice.
And Ozzie, you mentioned the Mets. I mean, we saw Dominic Smith speak and be very, very emotional about what was going on and where his mindset was at. And I mean, he would not have been able to continue to play, I think, having the mindset that he had. And I think that speaks to a lot of the players and what they're going through and what people just in general are going through. And I hate that it is politicized. I hate that this has become a term of, well, either you're on the right or you're on the left if you don't do X, Y, and Z. I think this is human issue. This is what's going on in this country. And if it's specifically in this country, what's going on, it's a human issue. This is a civil rights issue. And that's what needs to be the focus. It doesn't have to do it. In part, a lot of people feel like this administration has emboldened a lot of people to be as divisive as it is right now. But even yesterday when I was watching the VMAs, and something that stuck out to me was the diversity on that stage. You had Maluma to, J Balvin, you had the Black Eyed Peas. There was such a diverse set of artists on that stage. And then juxtaposed to the division that we're seeing in this country, I'm like, you know what? I don't think we're as divided as people want to make us seem. I really don't. So having the players do what they did, it makes you focus on what the actual issues are. There is a systemic issue in this country with the way that justice is taken between Black lives and white lives. And we saw that in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We specifically saw the two cases with a white young man and a Black young man, and how these two different people were treated. And that's what the protests are all about. It's not about not having justice for criminals. It's not that criminals should not be brought to justice. It's how do you go about doing that job? That is the question. And that's what needs to be answered. And that's what needs to be taken into consideration.
And for the fans that were worried about why the players were so upset, at the end of the day, these guys are human beings. You don't know if they have a young brother or a son or somebody, a family member that's involved in these protests, or that they have been a victim of police brutality, or they haven't been a victim of anything. So again, these are things that when you have to come and think about it, you don't know how this is affecting a player on an individual basis. And if the players thought that for whatever reason they needed to back up a teammate or not play, and they did it as a unit, I respect that. As much as I want to see the game, you have to respect that they're the players. And I was glad that the league backed them up and the teams backed them up, that no one had a forfeit, that there wasn't a team that said, well, we want to play, because sometimes it's hard to unify like that without having a unified front. And in reality, I think that Major League Baseball is going to grow from this. And it shows you that that the players are more aware than a lot of people thought that they were involved in different things that are happening in the world. For a long time, we always say, well, players don't care. They're not involved. They're just playing their games and worried about themselves. And that's not the truth.
Well, I want to get this point out. I mean, we talked about the Dodgers, right, turning the stadium into a voting center. Now across the league, the NBA league, that's what they're going to be doing. I would implore Major League Baseball to do the same. A lot of the stadiums, a lot of the arenas in all leagues, most of the time, they're in poor neighborhoods. Take advantage of the neighborhood that you are in, because you're going to be giving a lot of people a greater opportunity to voice their opinion and to exert their right, the First Amendment right to vote.
I agree. I use the facilities and use the what you have in your hands in order to keep the process. And again, there are great spaces to do it with the situation that we have on right now. I applaud those that have lended those facilities, because it really makes the process. It's at the end of the day, it's who we believe is going to be the best to win, but we need to have those. It's like, imagine playing a baseball game with no baseball field. Like, the game in itself would not be right. You have to provide those facilities for individuals to make the decision that they want to make. And that's the thing. I think, though, that I'm excited about baseball moving forward, because issues are going to keep coming up, from cancer to police brutality to women's rights to anything a player wants to talk about. And I really feel that you should let the player voice their opinion, and them feel free to talk about any issue that they have, whatever it is that they want to stand up for. I really think that's a really cool thing to do. That we do it in every other industry in the United States. Okay, why not Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I mean, standing up and living through this time of the transparency of social media and players taking to their social media to let their individual voices be heard. What was so beautiful about the movements across MLB in protest to play was that this was a culminative effort. This was a group effort for the entire team to all come together and say, this is wrong. The fact that a white young teen was able to be offered a bottle of water after fatally shooting 2 people, injuring a third, and yet a black man was shot 7 times and is now forever paralyzed and handcuffed to his hospital bed, just shows the difference in how the police treat 2 different races. Now, out of this pandemic, we all want to learn a different skill. We all want to master a new talent, whether it be learning a new language or being able to play a new musical instrument. But having the awareness of the racial injustice and inequality in this country is not a bad thing. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We appreciate it here on La Vida Baseball Live. I'm Julie Alexandria with Jennifer Mercedes and Ozzie Guillén Jr. Always a pleasure, you guys. We'll be back on Wednesday to cover the rest of the trade deadline saga and so much more. Thanks for watching, everyone.